El fantasma de Don Ramón. La industria televisiva sufrió un lamentable momento cuando Ramón Valdés, intérprete de Don Ramón en El Chavo del Ocho, falleció en 1988, cuando tenía 64 años de edad. Tras su partida de este mundo, Ramón Valdés fue recordado por millones de personas que siguieron disfrutando del programa creado por Chespirito hasta nuestros días. Después de su fallecimiento, varias historias paranormales rodearon su recuerdo y comenzaron a circular contenidos que demostrarían la presencia de su supuesto fantasma en el set de grabación. De acuerdo con lo que fue registrado en un vídeo de YouTube, en imágenes de uno de los capítulos se podría observar el supuesto fantasma de Ramón Valdés asomado por una ventana. Algunos curiosos señalaron que en este espacio se podía ver las facciones del actor, reflejado en uno de los ventanales de la vecindad donde vivía el personaje.
In the moonlight, my honey, I know with the dawn that you will be gone, but tonight you belong to me. Way down along the street.
Real-life horror stories that will keep you up at night. In 2013, a family from Houston, Texas bought their daughter an Elsa doll from the movie Frozen for Christmas. The doll wasn't anything special. All it did was sing the song Let It Go if you clicked the button on its necklace. For the next 2 years, everything was normal, until things took a horrifying turn. In 2015, weird things started to happen to the doll. It didn't have a Spanish mode, but it began to sing in Spanish randomly. It would also talk and sing when the switch was turned off. In December 2019, the family decided to finally throw away the creepy doll. But then, a few days later, one of their kids found it in a drawer in their living room, and none of them were big enough or old enough to get it out of the garbage can. The family put the doll inside of a box and threw it away again. The garbage was taken the next day, and the family decided to go on a vacation. But then, the day they got back, the doll was sitting in their lawn waiting for them. This is a photo of what they saw. After all this, the family mailed it to one of their friends, and they have yet to see it again.
I wrapped both my arms around the bar. He kicked me one more time, but I'd twist to the side just as his foot was about to hit my thigh. He was pushing so hard that he lost the grip on the bar and slid off. I watched in horror as my brother fell hundreds of feet to the snowy ground below. His phone was in his hand the whole time, filming everything. My brother never got the confession that he wanted, but at least he went viral. Steve and I had a long, silent ride home.
मनाली ये भारत के मशहूर पुरस्कार मकामात में से एक जगह है, जो कि भारत के हिमाचल प्रदेश में एक खूबसूरत शहर है। यहाँ पर आने वाले लोगों का कहना है कि उनके साथ यहाँ अजीबो-गरीब वाक़यात हो चुके हैं। मनाली की तरफ जो रोड जाती है उसके बारे में कहा जाता है कि इस रोड पर अगर कोई लिफ्ट मांगे तो कभी मत रुकना, क्योंकि लिफ्ट मांगने वाले इंसान नहीं होते। वहाँ के लोग दावा करते हैं कि वो कई बार एक चुड़ैल को दुल्हन के रूप में देख चुके हैं। वो चुड़ैल भेष बदल कर बहुत से लोगों का नुकसान कर चुकी है।
This is the most dangerous child in the world, and the crime he committed shocked the entire world. Rachel Thompson and her husband lived in an apartment in Houston, Texas with their 2 young children. One Monday night, Rach and Kellen, her husband, were hungry and decided to go pick up a pizza. They didn't think anything bad would happen if they left their 3-year-old son and 19-month-old sister alone at home for an hour. Soon after the parents left, the 3-year-old was playing with his sister in the kitchen when the worst possible thing happened. The 3-year-old decided to take his 19-month-old sister and put her inside the oven. He then turned on the oven and left his sister in there until the parents came back. The parents entered their apartment, but they couldn't smell the odor of burning flesh from the oven because they were carrying a hot pizza with them that had a strong smell. After a few minutes, Raquel noticed the oven was on and turned it off before looking inside. What she saw was every parent's worst nightmare. Comment kid for part 2.
I'm dead! I think I'm dead! Oh, time's going by really slow and my heart's beating backwards!
What makes you think your heart's beating backwards?
Well, normally it goes goop boop, and now it's going boop goop.
Are you having any other symptoms?
I can see sounds. I can hear colors. I forgot how to shit.
Sir, have you taken any illegal substances?
No, I just ate a brownie that a drug addict gave me, but that ain't got nothing to do with my emergency.
And what's your emergency, sir?
I measured my butt crack 3 times, and it was longer each time. I'm splitting into 2 people. Ooh, there's like 17 more brownies on that plate. I'm gonna finish them off and call you back.
My family and I are probably the biggest skeptics in the world, which is why I can't explain what happened that day. I went downstairs and my brother was in the kitchen. I grabbed a water and asked him if he believed in ghosts. He shook his head, but told me a story about something that he thinks may seem paranormal. Then I looked at him and asked, "Did you ever try to scare me when I came home from school?" I planned on asking that question to follow with my story. "Once," he said. Somehow that calmed me down, and I wasn't going to bring anything else up because I thought it was some kind of closure. He continued by saying, "But all I did was shoot a Nerf gun bullet at you while you were on the computer." I wish he didn't say that. That wasn't what happened to me in the 7th grade. I do remember him shooting a Nerf gun at me, but it felt inferior to what I was about to tell him. I continued to speak with him about the story that follows. It happened in middle school when I was in 7th grade and recently started off the new year. I came home that day and went to my bedroom where I sat in my bed and put in earbuds to watch YouTube videos. My mom had called me to tell me that my brother would be gone or would be leaving soon to go to a friend's house. My parents also worked late, which means I would be home alone. I was a very quiet kid when no one was around because I always had this fear that there could be someone in the house with me. If I didn't make much noise, then they couldn't find me, right? Who knew that suspicion could have possibly been true? I paused my YouTube video and headed to the bathroom. My house has a very weird layout. I'll try to explain what the important parts of this story looked like. If you were in my bathroom facing the door, you could step out and take a left, and my brother's room would be to your right at the end of the hallway, which is a short hallway. If you went right, you would reach the stairway that went down and stopped because there was a platform in the middle, and then you would walk in the same direction you came to get lower. The stairway leads to our main entrance of the house. We also have an alarm activated. If any doors or windows are opened, a box will immediately say which door has been used. I was in the bathroom and right about to flush the toilet when I heard a loud thud come from my brother's room. I assumed that he must be about to leave for his friend's house, so I flushed the toilet and got up to wash my hands. There were no more noises. The house felt still, but I felt like I was being listened to. I turned off the sink and walked over to the bathroom door to lock it. Something felt wrong. My stomach started to ache from fear. I felt like I was just being paranoid, but I also couldn't shake that weird feeling in my gut. So I waited for another noise. I didn't have my phone on me, so I couldn't text my brother. We had a house phone in there, but it made loud noises when you dialed, so I didn't want to risk it. Then I heard talking, which was definitely coming from my brother's room, but that was not my brother talking, and it couldn't have been my dad. The muttering was deep and low. It sent shivers down my spine. I could tell it was a voice because of the distinction of an S or a T, but I couldn't understand what it was saying. Then there was a slow pounding noise that started getting closer to me. It came out of my brother's room and nailed its way towards the bathroom door. It stopped dead in its tracks right at the door. I threw myself away from the door near the window, hoping that if it busted in, I could get away to leave. I couldn't fight whoever it was since I was a weak 7th grader, so that was out of the question. I covered my mouth to keep from breathing loudly in case they didn't know I was in the bathroom. Then they continued to walk. I could hear them making their way to the stairway, and then it stopped. I heard a loud crashing noise from what I thought was the middle platform of the stairs, and then again at the bottom. Then the muttering stopped, and the loud pounding made its way to the door. I heard the door open and close, and I heard the alarm go off for the door as well. I didn't know if it was safe or not, So I made my way to the door and rested my hand on the doorknob, still covering my mouth. To the left of me towards the ground is a laundry chute that led to our laundry room. If someone were to get from the main floor to the laundry room, it would definitely take over 30 seconds. But about 10 seconds after the door opened and closed, a vicious, jabbing noise pounded at the small laundry chute door. I stood there in awe, not sure what to do. It sounded like someone took the end of a broom and reached up there to stab at the door. I watched as the pounding of the door vibrated the small laundry chute door, hoping that it wouldn't bust open. Then it ended. I waited in the bathroom for what seemed like an eternity, and then quietly crept to my room to call my parents. No one picked up, so I waited for them to get home and held my door handle to make sure no one could get in, since I didn't have a lock on it. When my parents got home, they didn't believe me. Soon after, my brother arrived, and he doubted me as well. Telling this again to my brother made his mouth drop. He continued to tell me that he used to hear things come from the attic that used to open up in his bedroom. I will honestly never forget that day. Me and my brother can't figure out who or what that was, and I try not to think too hard about it either. I still don't quite know what happened, and I may never know, but I want to.
On November 5th, 1983, 5 men were killed and 1 man was injured in an explosive decompression accident on a Norwegian oil drilling rig called the Byford Dolphin. The victims were 4 divers and 2 diving tenders. The divers were Edward Coward, Roy Lucas, Bjorn Bergersen, and Truls Hellevik. The diving tenders were William Crammond and a Mr. Saunders, who was severely injured from the explosion but survived. 2 of the divers, Bergersen and Hellevik, were on the ocean floor working on an oil well when the team was told that bad weather was on its way. Bergersen and Hellevik then went into the diving bell that would pull them up to the decompression chambers. The bell was raised to the surface and clamped to the walkway called the deck, which led to the chambers. Bergersen and Hellevik set their wet gear in the deck and entered Chamber 1. Coward and Lucas were resting in the second chamber at the time. The normal steps of this procedure were supposed to go in this order. First, close the door of the diving bell. Second, a supervisor will slightly increase the bell's pressure to make sure its door seals tightly. Third, close the door between the deck and the chamber. 4, slowly depressurize the deck. And the final step, separate the bell from the chamber system. The first 2 steps happened with no problem, but then for some unknown reason, Crammond released the clamp before Hellevik closed the door to the chamber. This caused an explosive decompression to take place. Air rushed out of the chamber with tremendous force, jamming the interior deck door and pushing the bell away. Crammond was killed, while the other tender, Mr. Saunders, was severely injured. All 4 of the divers were killed from the explosive decompression from 9 atmospheres of pressure to 1 atmosphere in a fraction of a second. Hellevik was in the process of moving to secure the inner door when he was forced through the 24-inch diameter opening of the jammed door, causing him to be violently dismembered. His abdominal section was split, and his organs were ejected from his body except for the trachea, a section of small intestine, and a section of the spine. His insides exploded all over the area, one section later being found 30 feet vertically above the exterior pressure door. During a forensic investigation on all of the divers, large amounts of fat were found in their arteries, veins, and organs. It was found that the rapid change in pressure was so strong, it caused the divers' fat to separate from their blood. The rigor mortis was unusually strong. All the blood in the organs were a light red, and in 2 cases, there were numerous hemorrhages in the livers. It's still not known why Crammond released the clamp too soon. The committee investigating the situation had 2 conclusions on the cause of the accident. One was human error. At the time, the only communication the tenders on the outside of the chamber system had was through a bullhorn attached to the wall surface, with heavy noise added from the rig and sea. The men also worked very long hours during those times, sometimes up to 16-hour shifts, which caused a lot of fatigue. The other cause concluded was the company's failure to build a safe hatch into the rig's system. If fail mechanisms were present, the crew may have been spared their fate. Built in 1975, the Byford Dolphin was not equipped with fail-safe hatches, outboard pressure gauges, or an interlocking mechanism, which would have prevented the deck from being opened while the system was under pressure. Families of the victims were initially told the blast was an accident caused after air had escaped from the diving bell because gauges had been tampered with. It wasn't until the North Sea Divers Alliance, NSDA, formed by divers and family members, uncovered the investigation documents in 2008. They discovered that the divers were operating with faulty equipment. Roy Lucas's son, Stephen, was 10 when he lost his father. Roy was a British citizen while working on the Norwegian oil rig, and it took 26 years for Stephen and his family to finally receive compensation. Claire Lucas, the daughter of Roy Lucas, said, "I would go so far as to say that the Norwegian government murdered my father because they knew that they were diving with an unsafe decompression chamber."
Belgium, a YouTuber named Kaz, along with 2 friends, set out to explore an abandoned campsite. However, before they even reach their destination, something unexpected and unsettling happens. On December 29, 2023, the group arrived at a forest that led to the campsite. As they exited their car, they heard dogs barking in the distance.
Echt? Oh, man.
Deep in the woods. Upon reaching the forest entrance, they encountered a tree blocking the path with a message that read, "Private, this is a space for prayer. Please respect the area nearby." Another sign warned of a watchdog. Kaz mentioned that these signs hadn't been there during his previous visit, but the group decided to press on, stepping over the tree stump and venturing deeper into the woods. Not long after, they began hearing strange noises, which they described as something resembling the sound of a door creaking open.
Ja, wacht het. Die deur, die wint niet. Ik hoor zo... Nee, dat was een beest. Zeker? Ja. Oh, nee. Wat is dat? Dat was een deur. Dat is een deur, hè? Hallo? Ik heb de wind ook gaan, ja. Oh.
Realizing they might be on private property, the YouTubers decided to take a different route along a nearby path to avoid trespassing. As they walked further into the woods, they encountered another tree, this time cordoned off with red and white tape. A sign warned them again no access private property with camera surveillance. Despite these warnings, the group continued forward, unaware of the danger awaiting them.
What the fuck? Blijf gewoon hier. Lamp aan of niet? Hallo? 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 What the fuck? What the fuck? Hey!
At one point in the video, a figure appears an unsettling woman dressed in a white robe and holding an axe. She approaches the group at a fast pace, sending them into a panic. In the chaos, the 3 friends became separated in the darkness of the forest, but the terrifying figure wasn't finished with them yet.
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?
Eventually, the police arrived. Kaz emerged from the dark forest, shortly followed by the woman, who seemed disoriented.
Ja, is goed. Ja. Ja. Dat is die. Dat is die. Dat is die. Dat is die.
Mevrouw, het is de laatste keer. Hier blijven. Maar wat is het? Je gaat hier blijven. Ofwel moet ik mee met mijn vrouw mee, ofwel moet ik hier blijven. Ja, dat is goed. Vanaf nu luisteren naar mij. Nee, ik ga niet luisteren. Hé! Weet je respect hebben voor de collega, ja? Dat is geen respect hebben voor mij. Nee, dat gaan we niet doen. Mevrouw? Nee, dat gaan we niet doen. Dat gaan we niet doen. Nee, gedaan. Nu is gedaan, ja?
It took 6 officers to calm her down. She was taken into custody, while the 3 YouTubers, clearly shaken by the experience, headed home. They later described the incident as a traumatic ordeal but were grateful to have escaped unharmed.
I'm a 20-year-old guy. I work at a medium-sized hospital in northwest Alabama as a pharmacy technician. I work an early night shift, 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. I'm also in charge of stocking the surgery rooms. I work for 7 days in a row, and then I have 7 days off. Working the 7 sucks, but the 7 off feels amazing. I work Thursday through Wednesday, and on my 6th night working, a Tuesday, I left a little early to go stay with my wife at her aunt's house, about 30 minutes away from our house. She was babysitting her little cousins while her aunt and uncle were on a trip. The house didn't have any curtains, so she felt uneasy for the few nights she was there. I didn't go with her at first because it was during my work week, and she told me there was really no point if I was going to get there around 5 a.m. and then go to sleep once the sun started to rise. But on her last night babysitting, she felt extremely anxious, so I told her I was coming over. She is stubborn, but she thanked me and felt so much better once I arrived. Working the night shift for the last 2 years has really taken a toll on me mentally, and I think I've started to develop some slight insomnia. I literally could not go to sleep after getting to my wife's aunt's house. This isn't anything new, but I had never stayed up for more than about 28 hours before. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't sleep because we had a really big day ahead of us. We had to drop her little cousins off at school, our friend was having a gender reveal party, we had to go shopping because we had no groceries at home since she had been away for the last 3 days, and I had to be at work at 6 p.m. I ended up falling asleep in the car for a little less than 10 minutes. I was really feeling that wave of sleepiness come over me, but I ended up getting a huge Red Bull and another energy drink once I got to work. I had my wife drive me to work and pick me up since my brakes needed to be changed and I wasn't driving my car, and also because neither of us trusted myself to drive her car on over 24 hours of no sleep. It was Wednesday night now, and I had been awake since about 2 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. My shift started out fine. If I could stay busy, that tired feeling wouldn't really get to me. I put in my earbuds and was listening to music as I was stocking the surgery rooms with their meds. It was a weeknight, so there were still some late surgeries finishing up, and housekeeping was cleaning up some operating rooms that had been used. It's not uncommon for surgery personnel to come into the room I was in and grab something that the room they were using may be out of, so I usually turn around and at least smile, and they smile back. I was in my own little world, stocking the Omnicell machine with meds and listening to music, when I heard the door behind me open. There was that distinct high-pitched squeal when a door needs its hinges to be oiled. It made the loud crash that heavy wooden doors make when they shut, so I turned around to see who it was like always, except there was no one there. I didn't really get worried about it. Maybe they opened the door and saw I was in there and just decided to go to another room, so I continued on. As I pushed my cart to the next room, the light in this room was off. I opened the door, and I swear, I saw someone hunched over by the Omnicell machine, digging through the sharps bin. If you don't know what that is, it's a bin where you dispose of needles and vials after use instead of just putting them in a normal garbage can. Someone had already been caught doing this before in search of morphine and consequently was fired. I turned on the light and was going to ask what they were doing, but when I turned the light on, there was no one there. Okay, now I was starting to get a little creeped out. I didn't know the time frame of when you could start hallucinating after not sleeping for over 24 hours, so I just told myself I was probably seeing things and needed to just calm down. I finished up stocking surgery with no other occurrences and headed back to the pharmacy. At 2 a.m. every night, we have to deliver patient-specific medications to the nurses' station. I'm going to use the 5th floor as an example of how the floors are laid out, but each floor number corresponds with which floor they were on. There are 3 elevators in the middle of the floor. If you go left when getting off the elevator, there's the 5100 and 5200 side, and if you go to the right, there's the 5400 to 5500 side. There are 2 wings on each side, so there are patient rooms numbered 5105 to 5115, and the other wing has rooms 5201 to 5215. Each floor is laid out the exact same way, so each wing has 15 rooms on each side. To shorten the floor names though, I'm going to refer to them as 51, 52, and 54, 55. Recently, the 5th floor, specifically the 54-55 side, had been undergoing some remodeling, So our overflow floor, the 3rd floor, was where they put the patients who were on the 54-55 side of the 5th floor while they remodeled. The 54-55 side was empty because there weren't that many people in the hospital that night. I made my way up the hospital, delivering meds to the nurses' station floor by floor, until I got to the 5th floor. I went to the 51-52 side, delivered the meds, and decided to go check out the progress of the 54-55 side. As I went over there, I just got creeped out. There were no nurses, no patients, just the long, empty hallways. The surgery rooms are already empty and desolate most nights, so I'm used to walking around down there no problem. But seeing empty patient rooms just creeped me out. I walked slowly down the 55 side. I heard a noise that sounded like one of the hospital beds rattling. As I passed 5512, I quickly found out what the noise was. As I looked into the rooms, I saw an old man violently shaking as if he was having a seizure. Blood was running down his eyes, nose, and out of his mouth. He was making this gargling, groaning sound, almost like the sounds the zombies in The Walking Dead make. A monitor was frantically beeping like it does when a patient is coding. My heart dropped when I saw this, and I took a quick step behind the doorframe. I immediately stepped back into the room as I realized this man was in desperate need of medical attention. But when I looked back in there was no man. This bed was clean and made. The monitor was off, and there were no signs that anyone had even been in that room for at least a whole day. I thought at that point I was for sure hallucinating. I quickly made my way back over to the elevators, and I made my way back down to the 1st floor where the pharmacy is. As the elevator doors opened, an old man in a security shirt and hospital badge got on the elevator. He patted my shoulder as he walked past me. It was that same man I had seen moments before having a seizure and making those zombie-like noises. He smiled at me as the doors closed, and I watched the numbers on the elevator go all the way up to the 5th floor. I didn't push the button for the elevator to come back down, but the same elevator came back down to the 1st floor and opened. There was no one on the elevator. I ran back to the pharmacy and sat in a chair for the rest of my shift until my wife came and picked me up. As I was waiting, I googled when hallucinations start when you haven't slept. It said between 30 and 48 hours, and I was on hour 38 of no sleep, so it made sense. The pharmacy is located directly under the 54-55 side, so when I walk in, I can see the window at the end of the hospital wing on the 24, 34, 44, and 54 side. Sometimes as I wait on the elevator on that side to go back down to the pharmacy, I look out the window. As I was walking out to my wife's car, I looked back up at the 5th floor window and saw the same old man looking at me through the window. I got chills as I got into my wife's car. I didn't say anything about what I saw that night. I'm not sure why I would have hallucinated that specific man, as I've never seen him before, and even if I have, he has no significance in my life whatsoever. I'm still not sure, though, if that was even a hallucination, or if what I saw that night was real. It certainly felt real. I went to sleep immediately after getting home. I've not seen that man again, but this was just under 2 weeks ago.